The sky over Karanda City was dark and heavy with clouds. Cold wind rushed through the narrow streets, making the air feel sharp. Lenatha pulled her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders. Her arms were shaking, not from the cold, but from hunger. Behind her, a small boy no older than 4 years old walked slowly, holding her tail with tiny fingers. His name was Noro. He hadn't eaten anything today, or yesterday. Lenatha was a widow. Her husband had died 6 months ago in the mines, crushed under heavy machines. Since then, no one would hire her. Widows bring bad luck, they said. She has a child. Too much trouble. But Lenatha didn't give up. She walked to the first shop, an alien baker with hot steam rising from his oven. "Please," she whispered. "Do you need help? Cleaning? Washing?" The baker didn't even look up. "No work here. Go." She tried a second shop, a food stall selling roasted roots. "I can clean tables, serve customers. I don't want much. Just food for my son." "Go away," the owner snapped. "You'll scare customers. You look like a beggar." Lenatha flinched. Her son looked up at her, confused. She tried a third place, a repair shop, then another, and another. By the time she knocked on the 7th door, her voice was dry and cracked. "Please." The alien woman inside stared at her with cold eyes. "There are machines more useful than you." The door slammed shut. She walked toward the edge of the market and sat down on a stone bench. Her legs were weak, her eyes burned. The little boy climbed into her lap and buried his face into her chest. "I'm sorry, Noro," she whispered. "Mama tried." He didn't answer. He just held on tighter. Lenatha looked at the crowd. People walked by quickly, pretending not to see her. Some looked at her and then turned their heads fast. Some whispered and laughed. No one stopped. She thought of her husband. He had been strong, brave, and always smiling. He used to say, "Even if the world turns its back, I never will." But now the world had turned its back, and she was alone. Then someone stopped. Boots crunched on gravel. A shadow fell over her and the boy. She looked up slowly. A human man stood there. His face was rough, covered with a short beard. His jacket was old, with patches on the sleeves. He held a heavy bag in one hand, in the other a steaming cup of something warm. He didn't speak right away, just looked at her with steady eyes. Not judging, not scared, just curious. "You from around here?" he asked. Lenatha blinked. No one had spoken to her kindly in weeks. No, not anymore," she said softly. "I had a home, but they took it back after my husband died. We sleep near the supply yard now." The human sat down beside her on the bench. "Name's Jack. I fix machines. That big shop down the hill, mine." She nodded slowly. "I am Lenatha. This is my son, Noro." Jack looked at the boy, who peeked out from behind her shawl. His cheeks were thin, his eyes tired. Jack reached into his bag and pulled out a small wrapped bread. He held it out. "For him," he said. Lenatha hesitated. She didn't want charity. She had pride, but her son reached out with both hands and she couldn't say no. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack stood again. "I could use some help at the shop," he said. "It's dusty, tools everywhere, not clean. You good with cleaning?" She stared at him. Did he mean it? "I can work," she said quickly. "I'll do anything. Please." "Come tomorrow morning," Jack said, turning to leave. "And bring the kid. No one should go hungry." Then he walked away into the mist. Lenatha sat there frozen. For the first time in months, someone had spoken to her like she mattered. Someone had seen her, not as a burden, but as a person. She looked down at Noro, who was nibbling the bread, eyes wide with joy. A tear slipped down her cheek. Hope, just a small piece of it, had returned. Tomorrow she would go. Tomorrow, maybe everything would begin to change. The next morning, fog still covered the city streets. Lenatha held her son Noro close, wrapped tightly in her old shawl. Her feet moved fast, but her heart was heavy. What if the human had just been kind for one moment? What if he didn't really mean it? Still, she walked. She reached the repair shop at sunrise. The building was big but looked worn down. Tools hung on the walls. Old machines sat outside waiting to be fixed. There was a faded sign above the door. Jack's Repairs. Any problem, we'll try. She stepped inside. Jack was already working. Hammer in hand, sparks flying as he worked on a generator. He looked up, sweat on his brow, and gave a short nod. You came. I said I would, Lenatha said, her voice soft but sure. Jack pointed toward a bucket and cloth near the corner. The back room's a mess. You clean it, we'll see what's next. No welcome, no smile, just simple words. Lenatha was glad. She didn't want pity, just a chance. She placed Noro on a cushion Jack had laid down earlier and gave him a piece of stale bread. Then, without waiting, she went to work. The back room was full of dust, grease, and wires. Broken tools lay everywhere. She picked up each item carefully, wiping the shelves, sorting bolts and nuts by size. Her hands were quick. Her body moved, like it still remembered how to be useful. Jack watched from the doorway. He didn't say anything for an hour. Then he finally walked in. You know what this is? He asked, holding up a twisted metal piece. Lenatha studied it. Energy coil. From a Mark 7 plasma pump. Jack raised an eyebrow. Not bad. You've worked in repair before? My husband taught me, she said quietly. I helped him before he died. Jack nodded. Well, most aliens here just stare at it like it's a rock. You're ahead of them already. Lenatha allowed herself a small smile, but only for a second. The day passed fast. She didn't stop working even when her arms ached. She cleaned 2 rooms, organized a shelf of tools, and even rewired a loose connection on a control panel. At lunch, Jack handed her a sandwich and a cup of soup. You've earned it. He said. Lenatha looked down at the food, then at her son. Can I give it to him instead? Jack shook his head. Already made one for him, that's yours. Lenatha didn't know what to say. Her fingers trembled slightly as she took a bite. It was the first hot meal she had eaten in over a week. Later in the afternoon, a loud buzzing noise came from outside. A delivery drone had crashed near the shop, smoke rising from its side. Jack rushed out. That drone's full of ordered parts, he muttered. If I don't fix it now, I'll lose the contract. He opened the panel and cursed. Wiring's fried. Can't do it alone. Lenatha stepped forward. Let me help. Jack paused, then stepped aside. She bent down, eyes scanning the damage. Her fingers moved fast, pulling wires, replacing circuits, patching lines. 20 minutes later, the drone lights blinked green. It lifted into the air and flew off smoothly. Jack stared at her. You just saved me 300 credits. She wiped her hands. I didn't want you to lose your job. After giving me one, Jack chuckled. You really don't know how rare you are, do you? That evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, Lenatha sat beside her son on the shop floor. Noro played with 2 metal bolts, pretending they were spaceships. He laughed, a sound Lenatha had not heard in weeks. Jack stood nearby, arms crossed. You can come again tomorrow, he said. There's more work to do. Lenatha looked up at him, eyes wide. Are you sure? You've already done more in 1 day than most do in 5. She bowed her head. Thank you. Truly. He waved a hand. Just show up on time. As he turned away, Noro whispered to his mother, Mama, is this our new home? Lenatha held her son close. She didn't answer. Not yet, but deep inside, she hoped. By the 4th day, everyone in the market was talking. Did you hear? One alien woman whispered. That human Jack gave work to a widow. A widow. Another replied, and with a child. How can he run a shop with a baby crying in the corner? They say she's living there. Rumors spread through Coranda like fire through dry grass. Even those who had never cared about the human repairman before suddenly had something to say. But inside Jack's shop, Lenatha didn't hear the noise. She was too busy working. Each morning she arrived early with Noro by her side. She cleaned, sorted wires, and polished tools. By midday she was helping repair machines. At night she swept the floor before leaving. She never asked for more than food and a place to work. Noro always stayed close, quietly playing with scraps, building tiny ships from metal bits. He laughed more now. He smiled more. He even called Jack Unka. Jack didn't say much, but his eyes softened each time the child hugged him goodbye. Then one morning, Lenatha opened the shop early. Jack had left a generator half-finished the night before. She studied the machine. The coils were loose, and the power chip was wrongly placed. She remembered her husband's lessons. Always follow the lines, feel the current. Slowly, carefully, she adjusted the coil, replaced a wire, and fixed the chip. When Jack arrived, he looked at the machine, surprised. "You touched this?" "I'm sorry. No, it's working. I gave up on it yesterday." He scratched his head. "You fixed it?" She nodded shyly. "I tried." Jack stared at the machine, then at her. "I've been doing this for 10 years. Never seen someone fix that model alone." Later that day, a loud voice called from outside. It was Mr. Grox, the parts supplier. "Jack, the plasma scanner you gave me yesterday, perfect work." Jack stepped out, confused. "I didn't fix that one, she did." He pointed at Lenatha, who stood behind him. Mr. Grox blinked. "She? But she's a widow?" Jack finished. "Yeah. And better than most workers I've had." The crowd outside stared. By evening, the whispers had grown louder. She fixed the scanner herself? Maybe she's not just a burden, but she's still a widow. She should stay hidden. Some looked at Jack's shop with curiosity now, some with disgust, and some with silent admiration. That night, Lenatha sat alone in the workshop, eyes heavy. She had worked hard. She had done well. But the whispers hurt. "I'm not trying to take anyone's place," she said quietly to herself. "I just want to survive." She looked over at her son sleeping in the corner, wrapped in a clean blanket Jack had given him. Then the shop door creaked open. Jack stepped in carrying 2 bowls of soup. "One's for you," he said simply. She took it, hands warm around the bowl. "People are talking," she said softly. Jack shrugged. "Let them. They talked when I hired a robot once. They talked when I built my shop next to alien vendors. They always talk. But now they talk about me." Jack looked at her for a long moment. "Good. Let them see what strength really looks like." The next morning, Lenatha opened the shop alone. Jack had gone to the city center for parts. A young alien girl stood at the door. "Is it true?" she asked. "Is what true?" Lenatha replied gently. "That you work here, and you're not married, and the human lets you fix machines?" Lenatha smiled softly. "It's true." The girl looked around. "Do you think he'd let me learn too?" Lenatha blinked. "You want to fix machines?" The girl nodded. Lenatha thought for a second. Then she pulled out a broken panel and said, "Start here. I'll show you." Outside the shop, more eyes watched. More whispers began. The next week began quiet, but strange. More customers were coming to Jack's shop now, some just to get repairs. Others came pretending to look at tools, but they stared at Lenatha when they thought she wasn't watching. One alien even tried to touch her shawl when Jack wasn't there. She moved away quickly, holding her son close. Jack noticed her silence that night. "Something wrong?" he asked as they cleaned the workbenches. "Some customers stare too much," she said, keeping her eyes down. Jack frowned. "Want me to say something?" "No, just, I don't want trouble for you." Jack paused. "Trouble comes whether we like it or not, but no one bothers my workers, especially not you." Lena Tha didn't answer. But that night she cried quietly while holding her son. No one had defended her like that in a long time. The next morning, something unexpected happened. An alien in official robes arrived at the shop. 2 guards stood behind him. The alien's face was thin and sharp. His name was Counselor Vedro, a local government man who cared more about rules than people. Jack was bent over a broken coolant unit when Vedro spoke. Human. A word. Jack stood, wiping his hands. Yeah? Vedro looked around with a smirk. We've received complaints. You've hired an unregistered alien widow. You're allowing her to work without approval. This breaks local guild code. Jack raised an eyebrow. She's helping me. I pay her with food. She's not a slave. Still, Vedro said smoothly, it looks bad. You're upsetting the balance. Others are uncomfortable. Jack folded his arms. Uncomfortable with what? That she's better than their lazy workers? Vedro's smile faded. Let me be honest. Remove her. Quietly. Send her back to wherever she came from. We'll forget this happened. I'm even authorized to offer you compensation. He held out a credit chip. Lena Tha stood frozen at the doorway, clutching Noro. Jack looked at the chip. Then he walked over and dropped it straight into the garbage bin. Vedro blinked. What are you? Jack spoke firmly. If she goes, I go. She's not the problem. You are. Vedro's face turned red. You'll regret this, human. No, Jack said, walking back to the bench. You will. Vedro stormed out with his guards. That evening, Lena Tha packed quietly. Her hands trembled as she folded the shawl she used as a blanket. Noro sat silently beside her. She didn't want to leave, but now that the council knew, trouble would follow. The shop would get fewer customers. Jack could be fined, maybe worse, so she made her decision. When Jack came back from his supply run, he found the workshop too quiet. The small bench where Noro usually played was empty. He walked into the back room and saw her bag packed, her eyes wet. Where do you think you're going? He asked, his voice low. Lena Tha didn't meet his gaze. You've already done too much for me. Now they threaten you. I won't stay and ruin your life. Jack took 2 steps forward. You think I'm scared? Vedro. He has power, she whispered. So do I, Jack said. Not the kind that sits in an office, but the kind that builds. That helps. She looked at him now. Her hands clutched the strap of her bag tightly. You shouldn't suffer because of me. And you shouldn't suffer alone, he said. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Noro looked up and asked, Are we leaving again, Mama? Lena Tha's mouth opened, but no words came. Jack crouched beside the boy. No, kid, you're staying, both of you. Noro smiled and nodded, and slowly, Lena Tha let her bag fall from her shoulder. The next morning, Jack hung a small handwritten note outside the shop window. We fix everything, and everyone is welcome. Some aliens walked by and frowned, some smirked, but one woman stopped, read it, and gave a tiny nod before moving on. Inside, Lena Tha stood tall behind the counter, helping a customer with a damaged power cell. She didn't smile, but her hands were steady. She wasn't hiding anymore. That night, Lena Tha couldn't sleep. The city outside Jack's shop was quiet, but her mind wasn't. She sat on a small bedroll Jack had made for her and Noro in the back room. The lights were dim, tools hung neatly on the wall, and her son snored softly beside her. But still, her chest felt heavy. What if Counselor Vedro returned? What if this peace didn't last? She stood and quietly walked toward the exit. Just a short walk, she told herself. Just to think. But as soon as she opened the back door, a voice came from the dark. Going somewhere? She turned sharply. Jack stood leaning on the wall, arms crossed, holding a mug of hot tea. She looked away. I only wanted some air. Jack didn't move. You packed your bag again. She hesitated. I thought maybe I should leave before more trouble starts. Jack sighed. You still don't get it, do you? Lenatha said nothing. He walked forward and placed the mug in her hands. You don't need to run anymore. You have a place now. I want you to stay. But the stairs, the council, the rumors, I don't care what they say, he cut in. You work harder than anyone I've known. You fix machines like they talk to you. My shop's better with you in it. But you're not just anything, he said firmly. She blinked. No one had ever spoken about her like that. The next morning, she didn't try to leave again. Instead, she woke up early and surprised Jack with breakfast, plain but warm. Something she'd scavenged and cooked over a small fire behind the building. He smiled and didn't say much, but he finished the whole plate. Noro danced around the shop happily with a little tool belt Jack had made from spare straps. He tried to help, handing his mother tools and sweeping the floor with a brush 3 times too big for him. Customers came and went, and this time, some of them smiled. Later that afternoon, 2 young alien women stood outside the shop, whispering. Jack was fixing a damaged hover bike. Lenatha was checking its rear thruster. One of the girls finally walked inside. I want to learn, she said, eyes focused on Lenatha. Lenatha looked up, surprised. You want to learn repairs? She asked gently. The girl nodded. If you can do it, maybe I can too. Lenatha gave her a warm look. You can start by watching. The next day, another girl came, then 2 boys. By the end of the week, 4 young aliens stood in a row, learning from Lenatha. They watched her solder, fix broken switches, and even rebuild a small drone. Jack watched from the doorway. You've got students now, he teased. She shook her head with a soft smile. They just need someone to believe in them. Jack chuckled. Funny. That's what I said about you. That night, as they locked up, Lenatha paused at the door. Thank you, she said quietly. Jack looked at her. For what? For stopping me. For not letting me go. Jack's face turned serious. You were never meant to walk away. You just needed someone to remind you. She looked down. I still feel like I don't deserve all this. You do. You've earned it every day. Suddenly, little Noro ran over and tugged Jack's jacket. Unca Jack, he said happily, showing him a drawing. It was a picture drawn in shaky crayon. Lines of a human, an alien woman, and a small child holding hands in front of the repair shop. Jack crouched down. What's this, champ? That's us. Noro grinned. Our new family. Jack didn't answer at first. He just stared at the drawing for a long time. Then he ruffled the boy's hair. Yeah, kid. I guess it is. Lenatha stood still, watching that moment. Her heart filled with something warm. Something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Home. But this time, some of the whispers were not cruel. Some sounded like hope. The morning began like any other. The sun rose over Karanda City, painting the sky gold. Jack unlocked the shop, Lenatha prepared the tools, and Noro sat cross-legged, building a small model ship from leftover screws. The young alien students gathered outside, eager to learn. For the first time in many years, Lenatha felt peace. The repair shop was alive. It had become more than a place to fix machines. It was a home, a school, a second chance. But peace never lasted long in Karanda. Around midday, as Jack helped a customer with a large scanner unit, the front door slammed open. 3 rough-looking aliens entered, their shoulders broad and faces cold. They weren't here for repairs. Everyone stopped working. One of the thugs stepped forward. This the place where the widow fixes machines? Jack stood slowly. You need help, or are you here to bark? The lead alien sneered. Counselor Vedro sends his regards. Told us this place needs a warning. He raised his boot and kicked. Over a crate of tools. The loud crash made Noro jump and drop his model. Jack moved toward them, but before he could reach, one alien pushed over the drone charger Lenatha had just finished repairing. It crashed into pieces. That was enough. Lenatha stepped forward, placing herself between the thugs and the workbench. "Stop," she said firmly. The aliens laughed. "What'll you do? Cry on us?" She didn't flinch. "I've built everything here with my hands. You won't break it without breaking me first." The biggest alien stepped closer, towering over her. "You think a weak widow can stop us?" But Lenatha didn't step back. "I'm not weak anymore," she said quietly. "Not since someone gave me a chance." Behind her, the students picked up tools, not as weapons, but as a sign. They stood beside her. Then Jack moved in, holding a power wrench in one hand. "That's enough," he said. "You want to destroy something? Try me first." For a long moment, no one moved. The thugs exchanged looks. One of them muttered, "Not worth it." They turned and left, pushing over one more box on the way out. But the damage was done. The charger was broken. Some wiring shelves scattered. Noro's small drawing was torn and crushed under a boot. Lenatha knelt and picked up the broken pieces of the charger. Her hands shook slightly, but she didn't cry. Jack looked at her. "You okay?" She nodded. "We can fix it." He smiled. "We?" She glanced at her students, now busy helping clean up. "All of us." News spread fast. Counselor Vedro sent men to scare them. But she stood up. She didn't run? No, she faced them. By sunset, aliens were whispering a different story. Not about a weak widow, but about a brave one. One who stood her ground. That evening, a tall alien woman, one of the city's oldest merchants, came to the shop. She placed a basket of food on the counter. "For the boy," she said. "I was wrong about you." Lenatha looked up in surprise. "Thank you," the woman nodded. "You've reminded us what strength really means." The next day, 2 customers came in. Then 5. Then 10. Not to gossip, not to stare, but to buy, to repair, and to learn. Later that night, Lenatha sat beside Jack outside the shop. The stars were bright above them. "Why didn't you stop me that day when I faced them?" she asked. Jack looked at her. "Because you didn't need me to. You had it handled." She smiled softly. "Still, you stood behind me." "Always," he said. Inside, Noro slept peacefully, his drawing repaired and hung proudly behind the counter. It had a new name written under it in big, bold letters. Family Repair. We fix more than machines. 2 months later, the old repair shop no longer felt small. The shelves were fully stocked. Machines buzzed with life. The once quiet space was now full of students, customers, laughter, and learning. Even Counselor Vedro had gone silent after his warning failed. No more threats, no more spies. And at the center of it all stood Lenatha, not as a servant, not as a widow begging for work, but as Jack's partner, equal in every way. One morning, a loud knock came at the shop door. Jack opened it and blinked. A representative from the outer colony stood there holding a datapad. "You're Jack?" she asked. "We've heard about your shop. Word travels fast. We need engineers for our expansion fleet. Someone said you and your team repaired a Gen 9 coolant drone in 20 minutes. Jack raised an eyebrow. "That was her," he said, stepping aside and pointing at Lenatha. The woman looked surprised. "You?" Lenatha simply nodded. "I fixed it with spare parts from the junk pile." The representative smiled. "We want to offer a contract, equipment, credits, and a transport shuttle, but we want you to lead the team." Jack looked at Lenatha. She looked back, and without speaking, they both knew the answer. They signed the contract that afternoon. The shop was renamed officially, Family Repairs and Tech, Humans and Aliens Welcome. The title was Lenatha's idea. That evening, the shop was packed with friends, customers, and curious neighbors. The same aliens who once turned her away now clapped her on the back, shook her hand, and thanked her for helping their kids learn something useful. The same alien woman who once said, "You'll scare customers," now brought sweet cakes for Noro. And Noro? He ran around with the other children holding a small wooden plaque Jack had made. Carved into it were 3 words, Mama. Unka, me. Later that night, after everyone had gone, Lenatha sat beside Jack under the stars once again. The air was quiet, peaceful. She looked up. Do you ever regret hiring me that day? Jack turned to her. Do you regret staying? She smiled. He shook his head. You weren't a burden, Lena. You were the reason this place survived. I thought I gave you a chance, but truth is, you saved me too. Lenatha's eyes softened. You saw me when no one else did. You saw something I forgot I had. What's that? Jack asked. Worth. She stood and walked inside, pausing by the old drawing of the three of them taped behind the counter. It was faded now, the corners curled, but it was still there, still true. 3 days later, the first shipment for the colony contract arrived. Machines bigger than the shop had ever handled. But this time, there were more hands to help, more hearts to care. Young, aliens worked beside humans. Old enemies became teammates. And right at the center, Lenatha trained them all. Jack stood at the back of the shop one evening just watching her. How the students listened to her every word, how even customers asked for her first. She didn't notice him. She was too focused, too determined, but Jack smiled and whispered to himself, I never saved her. I just opened the door. She walked through it and lit the whole place up. And far away in a quiet corner of Karanda City, a faded poster still hung on a wall where it had been ignored before. It once read, Widow seeking work, honest hands, will do anything. Now someone had written over it with bright red ink, She's not looking anymore. She's building a future.